So I was sitting the other day, 7 games into the Premier League season, when something dawned on me. One of the promoted teams is going to survive. Now, that doesn't sound like quite a bold statement until you realise that for the last 2 complete seasons, every promoted team has gone straight back down. Going into the 23-24 season, Luton Town, Burnley FC and Sheffield United were our 3 promoted teams. All 3 were relegated. The closest to surviving relegation was Luton, who were a full 6 points off. None of these teams really put up a fight, and Sheffield United actually conceded 104 goals. In fact, the other promoted teams weren't much better. Burnley conceded 78 and Luton 85.
Y'all are trash. And I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Y'all are trash.
Combined, they had 14 wins all season. 24-25 wasn't much better. The 3 promoted teams were Leicester, Ipswich and Southampton, and all 3 went straight back down. Southampton being the 2nd worst team in Premier League history, and Leicester being the closest one to surviving, but still finishing a full 13 points behind Tottenham. Which of course was poor for all other fans. If we had teams that were fighting to stay out of the relegation zone, we could have had Spurs in a relegation fight. Now this has caused a number of problems, namely being that means the minimum amount of Premier League consistent years and experience that any team will have will be at least 3 years now. Which means it's 3 years of not only Premier League experience, but Premier League money. These squads have had far bigger incomes, which allows them to spend more on already established Premier League squads. And over the last 2 years, it's caused a massive uproar in terms of people asking, how are we going to fix this? The league will be incredibly poor if every year the promoted team just goes straight back down. And this isn't a problem that countries around the world are crying out. It seems to only be something that's really noticeable in England. However, I'm making a bold prediction. This year, one of the promoted teams will survive. The 3 promoted teams this year were Leeds United and Burnley, alongside Sunderland. Leeds and Burnley finished 1st and 2nd in the Championship with 100 points each. Sunderland would finish 4th with only 76 points, but would come up through the playoffs despite Sheffield United winning 7 more games and totalling up 14 extra points. And Sunderland losing their last 5 games before the playoffs started. Now, if you'd looked at a championship table like that during the 2010s or even the noughties, you would have no doubts that the 2 championship teams accumulated 100 points wouldn't even be struggling to stay in the Premier League. But nowadays that feels like a tough ask. However, at the time I'm recording this, we're 7 games into the season. The lowest is Burnley, who are in the relegation zone but have had multiple extremely difficult games. Leeds sit 15th and Sunderland are as far up as 9th. Now, I feel like a lot of promoted teams always make a good start of things. The issue is when it comes into being a marathon, not a sprint. Consistency and longevity proves to be a problem for these teams. All of them in their own right have tried to recruit well. I'm not going to spend time in this video going through all of the recruitment because it would simply take too long. However, all of them have spent good money to strengthen their squads. Sunderland even managed to bring in the likes of Granit Xhaka. Burnley seen the return of Kyle Walker, proven and experienced Premier League players. However, there's one advantage going for the promoted teams this year that wasn't going in previous years. And that is there are some established clubs that actually look bad enough to go down. Let's start with Wolves, who really struggled last year until they brought in Vitor Pereira, hit a great patch of form and shot up the table to a place where they survived. After 7 games, they've lost 5 and drawn 2. They lost Aït-Nouri and Cunha through the summer, and it feels like Wolves have been a team that's been flirting with relegation for years now. West Ham are another struggling side. 7 games into the season, they've already sacked Graham Potter, which was a disastrous appointment from minute 1. However, they've appointed Nuno Espirito Santo, so I could see them start to claw up the table. And then 3 other teams that I could see struggling, or currently are struggling, are Nottingham Forest, Brentford and Fulham. Fulham are the least likely to struggle out of all of these. Marco Silva is an established and good manager. They have a good squad. The issue is it's starting to become a bit stale and there isn't really a standout in that team anymore. However, if anyone is going to go down, I don't think it will be Fulham. Brentford are a team who have lost multiple of their best players over the summer. Brian Mbeumo, Johan Wissa and manager Thomas Frank have all left. Brentford didn't really make a big song and dance about replacing these players though. Whilst they haven't started the season appallingly, accumulating 7 points from 7 games, I could see longevity being another issue for Brentford and they could potentially be drawn into an issue. Nottingham Forest are an equally interesting one. Within 5 games of the league season, Mr Marinakis had decided it would be a great idea to sack Nuno Espirito Santo, the manager who'd got them into Europe the previous season. And in his place, and a deal that is not possibly seen as being dodgy whatsoever, Forest have appointed former Spurs disaster Ange Postecoglou. And already it looks like it's going horribly wrong for Forest. They sit on 5 points, just 1 point above Burnley and West Ham in the relegation zone, and actually even if Wolves win at the weekend by at all and Forest lose, Wolves would jump Forest on goal difference. Forest squad is expensive but looks disjointed and out of ideas. Ange's system didn't work at Tottenham, it doesn't look like it's going to work at Forest, and it doesn't look like it'll ever work in the Premier League, to be honest. On top of that, the promoted teams have a lot going for them. Leeds have been promoted many times in recent years and have incredibly ambitious and wealthy owners. Not only that, but they are a massive club and the expectation should probably be that Leeds are a Premier League side. Daniel Farke has had 2 cracks at the Premier League now with Norwich and failed horrendously both times. However, you have to say he should be learning from his mistakes. Similarly goes for Burnley and Scott Parker. He doesn't have anywhere near the war chest that Farke will have at Leeds, but Parker has got 3 different clubs promoted from the Championship now. He's a young manager who's clearly started to learn. Burnley are a rugged defensive side. They look like a team that's going to be hard to beat. They will make you work for it, and they're trying to make the most of what they've got. On paper, they definitely have one of, if not the weakest side in the Premier League. But Parker's doing all he can to make this work. They're having a real go at it. And finally, you have Sunderland, who are a massive named club within the English pyramid. Sunderland are a Premier League club, they should be in the Premier League. 3 wins from 7 games and 2 draws see them sit 9th with 11 points. Sunderland have started the season exceptionally, and you have to think between the 3 of them, I cannot see a world in which one of them, just one of them, doesn't go over the line. And this would be great if it did happen. It will finally break the cycle. Now, how many promoted clubs do I think will stay up? I'll say this, I don't think all 3 will. I think certainly one of the 3 will go down. As to what one, who knows? As to who will go down in their place, well, there's certainly some favourite candidates for it. West Ham were definitely the worst team in the league until they sacked Graham Potter. I can see Nuno working his magic. They won't fly too far up the table, but I can't see Nuno letting a team get relegated, especially with the quality of players that West Ham have. Forest seem like another team whose players are too good to go down. I can see the season continuing to go poorly under Postecoglou. I can see him losing his job and Forest appointing manager number 3 of the season. That time I expect they'll get it right to stay up. And that leads me to my 2 candidates. I think the teams that could be in for a hard relegation fight this year are Brentford and Wolves. On paper, Brentford have seriously weakened. As I mentioned previously, they've lost so many good players and so much out of their attack. An incredibly inexperienced manager as well. It's not guaranteed to go wrong for Brentford, but on paper it certainly could. And the big one is definitely Wolves. As I mentioned earlier, they've lost big players and they've been flirting with relegation for years now. When Wolves first came up, they were an exciting, energetic, attacking, great team to watch, but over years it's deteriorated into just a survival attempt every year. And if every single year you're fighting off relegation, one year you're going to get it wrong and you're going to go down. Wolves are a team that I think could easily come straight back up, but they'll struggle this year, and this year could be the year where it's just too much for them. It's not guaranteed to be too much for Wolves. If there's any team that looks guaranteed to go down and could surprise you and stay up, it's probably Wolves. But that's just my opinion on this season so far. Let me know in the comments what you guys think. I'd be interested to hear. I'm sure we can all agree that we don't want another year of all 3 promoted teams going back down. I want to thank everyone who's made it this far into the video, and I'll see everyone in the next one.